A southeastern South Dakota man has been ordered to spend 60 days in jail for providing the marijuana in the brownies his mother unknowingly served to seniors at a card game. Michael Caranda had earlier pleaded guilty to a felony drug charge. A judge also sentenced Caranda of Tabor to 2 years of probation and ordered him to pay more than $3,400 in court costs and restitution. He must also write an apology letter to the seniors who ate the marijuana brownies. At his sentencing, Caranda expressed regret for his actions and its impact on others, including those who sought medical attention. Fargo-Moorhead, low 50s this afternoon. We are at 51 now. Overnight, partly cloudy and 25, mid-30s both tomorrow and Friday, near 45 Saturday, Sunday. Again, 51, Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
Huey Lewis on the news, man. They used to just put out bangers all the time. I mean, when we talk about how good soundtracks are, if you think if you're going to exclude Back to the Future just solely because of Huey Lewis, you're missing a thing or two. I'm Tyler Axis, your host. Eric Johnson, your producer. This is Afternoons Live on a Wednesday afternoon, and I'm just going to be upfront with you. Yesterday when we started the show, it was just 10, 15 minutes before I turned the microphone on, and the Senate had unanimously said, yeah, we're going to stay with this whole daylight savings. We're not going to fall back in time and go to standard time. We're going to keep it here. It wasn't on anybody's radar. But you know what? It's been the talk of a lot of people. And here's where it took me completely off guard is how passionate you are about which time we are in, standard versus daylight. Just some of the comments, because I put my thoughts, of course, on these airwaves yesterday and online last night, and sit back and get a bucket of popcorn ready. But it's continuing on today. And in fact, we just heard somebody on It Takes Two at the end there talking about the fact that, here's what happened when we all tried this. It didn't go according to plan. And then everyone's, geez, Tyler, how many clocks do you got in your house? You don't have to change them all. Is it really that big of a chore? It's not about the clock change itself. So I was saying yesterday, it's about where you prefer the daylight within your day. From when you wake up to when you go to bed, where do you want the daylight? Do you want it, in that morning, or do you want it after you're done with work? For most people, not all, I understand that. And I said, you know what, I want it, longer into the evening. You feel like you can get more done after you put in a good, solid day's work. I get not everybody works in an office. Boy, I was getting beat up about that last night. So I said, you know what, if it's dark until 8:39 while you're sitting in your office or in your shop, who cares, right? I mean, it's about that extra hour or two that you get after when you are not in the confines of your employment. But here's what's coming out, and I'm going to go to the text club at 35270. That is the iConsultants of North Dakota text club. You can also call in. Lenny studio lines open all day at 237-5948. About schools. And that's one thing I heard from the previous guest right before we took over is, when you have all this whole busing situation for students to where they're standing in line waiting for the bus in dark in the morning. Again, we get so, I think, in our structure and set in our ways of, well, this is just how we've always done things. I mean, the conversation now, I think, has evolved to the point where, hey, if we're going to change this, why couldn't we change some of the other things? Like, I don't know, maybe we push back school starting by half hour or an hour. Now, I know I've got a wide range in the audience listening to me right now. And I know that I had, when I was going to school way back when, like a lifetime ago, 3:30 was when we finished up. And if we didn't have zero period, what was it? 8 o'clock was the first period, first class, whichever. I know it's staggered in a place where I'm sitting now, in a bigger area, big metropolitan, where they stagger because of the bus routes and all that. So it's going to be a blanket statement, but I throw it out there. Would you be opposed if your big concern or big holdback is about children waiting for being on the bus in dark? Are you opposed to just getting the school day to start, I don't know, closer to when you start work? I mean, you think about the crossovers, I imagine, as parents, where you got to figure out, well, I got to get little Johnny to this spot at this time, and I got to hurry up because then I got to get, if it was more aligned with your work day, explain why that's a bad idea at 35270 or 237-5948. Tyler, why do we have to pick one time for the other? Why can't we split the difference when you get the best of both worlds? That's been thrown out. Hey, a compromise, something we always push for. Why this just arbitrarily came and was, we're sticking with daylight savings. I don't think we've ever really been given a reason from anybody that actually voted for it, and there was 100 of them that did, or at least all that showed up for work in the U.S. Senate yesterday. Tyler, daylight savings talk happens twice a year for about 1 week each time, and then all the whiners forget about it. It's been happening for years. This one's different there, pal, because this one might be the last one. This might be the end of it all. We're not going to be whining about it anymore. And in fact, you know what? I got a table here for everyone saying, well, Jesus, it's going to be so dark, so late here in the upper Midwest. Here's the latest that it would be sunrise, and I got this forwarded to me from a good friend. Put a lot of work into this and getting this chart here, and this is based on Minnesota. In December would be the latest of which the sun would rise for us. And that would be in between 8:30 and 8:50. Too late for you? That's my question to you. But I want to get back to the whole, if it's about schools, what prevents us from just shifting how we do that public school day? Instead of having it at that zero period, or you get done at 3:30 or whatever it is now. Is that completely off the table for you? We'll come back to that conversation. Plus, I want to tell you what I'm watching on the monitors right now about President Biden and what he just called Vladimir Putin. We'll come back to that as well. Afternoons Live, we're just getting started. I'm Tyler Axis. Don't go anywhere.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Pioneer House Assisted Living, offering you the independence of your own apartment with the convenience of extra assistance when needed.
Fargo-Moorhead, 51 degrees and mostly sunny. I'm Paul Jurgens. The Ukrainian president addressed a joint session of Congress today, sharing a video depicting the human toll of the war. He also invoked Pearl Harbor and 9/11 to appeal to the U.S. for more help in defending his country. The North Dakota delegation attended the speech and supported the call for additional aid. Congressman Kelly Armstrong says President Zelensky did an effective job of painting a picture of the atrocities being committed by Vladimir Putin's forces and said the U.S. needs to assess what more it can do to help. Senator Kevin Cramer says Zelensky's speech should motivate the U.S. to do more. Hours after the speech, the Biden administration committed to $800 million in military aid as well as more anti-aircraft, anti-armor weapons, and drones to Ukraine. The hike in diesel prices continues to hit the trucking industry hard. A shortage of truckers isn't helping, and experts expect that increased costs will get passed on to the consumer.
Eric Grove, a regional manager for Magnum Trucking and president of the North Dakota Motor Carriers Association, says diesel prices are now higher than he's ever seen in the business, and everyone seems to be feeling the pinch.
You know, our trucking industry, fuel is typically our number two cost. So something we monitor very carefully. And yes, out on the western side here, you know, we're scaring $5. So kind of a double whammy. If you're gonna deliver freight and turn wheels, we have to buy fuel.
Fargo trucker Vern Thompson is an owner-operator of a small trucking company. He's taking a financial hit, and he wonders when it's all going to end.
I calculated it out. If the fuel price stays the same as it is today for the rest of the year, it'll cost us, our mom-and-pop trucking operation, an additional $38,000 for fuel. That's for each truck.
North Dakota's average for diesel is now around $4.71 a gallon, slightly less than number 2 diesel that's at many of the locations that truckers use. Don Haney, News Radio KFGO.
Mostly sunny, 51. This is KFGO News. Police have arrested the former boyfriend of a woman who died after she was set on fire at a St. Paul shipping warehouse. 44-year-old Kelly Goodermont was killed at her workplace. Her former boyfriend was arrested near his Bloomington home that had been set on fire. In a protection petition filed last June by Goodermont, she said the 47-year-old man had a loaded handgun at one point and held it to her head. Court records also show the man was civilly committed and hospitalized for psychosis. Family members say Goodermont worked as a dispatcher at the warehouse where the suspect was the truck driver and that they had known each other for a number of years. Republicans say because Minnesota's unemployment insurance fund was not given more money before the deadline, businesses will soon be hit with an automatic tax increase. KFGO News correspondent Bill Warner has the latest from St. Paul.
Democrats say there is still time to avoid that, and they first want Republicans to agree to $1 billion for COVID frontline worker bonuses. Senate Majority Leader Jeremy Miller says Republicans are more than happy to continue discussing the previously agreed on $250 million. However,
our proposal we like better. The proposal that Senate Republicans put out provides permanent, ongoing tax relief for all working Minnesotans.
Democrats say Republicans' tax relief would also include wealthy Minnesotans, something they say they will not go along with.
Scammers are targeting Minnesotans with calls about the state's energy assistance program. The Department of Commerce says people are asked to provide a bank account or credit card information. The energy program, though, does not require such information. Fargo-Moorhead, lower 50s are high this afternoon, partly to mostly sunny. Some clouds overnight. 25 tomorrow, cooler, 35 partly sunny, also mid-30s for Friday. Near 45, mostly sunny both Saturday and Sunday. Again, mostly sunny, 51. Paul Jurgens, News Radio KFGO.
Rusty Alverson in the KFGO
Yes,
studio.
sir.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good.
Beautiful day outside tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day. Saturdays is the parade downtown. I'm going to be walking in that.
Tomorrow's St. Patty's Day. Is that right?
That is correct.
Ah, didn't keep up on that.
Well, now you know. Now you can prepare. You're kind of halfway there. You got the red hair, the red beard.
Oh, yeah.
Just don't forget the green is the only
Gonna
thing.
wear the green. Don't be pinching me, Tyler.
Why was that everything? There were things, we've been talking about school this whole first half hour. That was one of the biggest fearful days of going to school was St. Patrick's Day, because you would be fearful that you forgot to wear green in the morning and that somebody would pinch you. And not just somebody, some people, multiple people coming up pinching you. Why was that ever allowed?
I don't understand that. I don't know.
Yeah, nor do I.
Yeah.
Somebody can explain it. 35270. Traumatic is what it was.
If there's plenty of reasons to be fearful of school.
Not the least of which is St. Patrick's Day.
You don't need to be pinched.
No, exactly.
That's just
the teachers would just giggle about it. We should have wore green. Or maybe that was just the school I went to.
Turning a blind eye.
Yeah, Well, today's the one day you get to be harassed, to be a bully for all those kids not wearing green.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not why I called you in here.
Yeah.
We'll be throwing out some candy. A lot of sugar in candy. I know you've been dealing a lot with sugar.
How sweet it is. A lot of sayings in agriculture. The International Sugar Beet Institute underway at the Alara Center in Grand Forks, Tyler, and the upcoming Farm Bill debate on the minds of many sugar beet growers and educating new members of Congress about the Farm Bill. One of the big priorities. I visited with Luker Markwart, with the executive. He is the executive vice president of the American Sugar Beet Growers Association, and he says the main point is that our sugar program is working well, and producers have to defend it for the 2023 Farm Bill reauthorization.
There's lots of litigation going on over biotechnology, on pesticides, all of that stuff that we have to monitor, keep track of, educate members of Congress on, look at regulatory things. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that most growers probably don't pay attention to. But there's a lot there, and we just appreciate their support of being able to do all these things for their benefit.
Earlier today, Tyler, we don't have audio to share at this time, but we monitored another House Agriculture Committee hearing earlier today. They are ramping up. They're talking about the Farm Bill, trying to establish new goalposts for the next Farm Bill, and this conversation is going to continue for quite some time.
One thing I'll be curious about, son, this literally just got the seed planted in my mind because of this. With everything we're watching over in Ukraine, when it comes to supply, when it comes to food, those markets, if this is going to not cause some urgency in Congress to get this taken care of sooner rather than later. Don't dilly-dallying around. Get the Farm Bill done because you have to have that. It's a food program.
Yeah.
So maybe they're going to have some urgency to get this done.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many of the programs of the Farm Bill, Title I, Title II, you can talk all day about nutrition, such an important piece of legislation. And like you and I have talked about, Tyler, if they keep a bipartisan spirit in the debate, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Hopefully that's the case. We have a little window here, is that what I'm, as far as everyone seeming willing to be working with each other for now.
Yeah.
Rusty, I'll have you back next hour, man. I appreciate that, all right?
Yep, you bet.
Rusty Alverson, you can check out more of his work, Sarah Heinrich, if you go to kfgo.com. I got to get you some CBS National News. Bill Warner, our Capitol correspondent down in St. Paul, he's next. Wednesdays, we head on down to St. Paul and check in with our Capital correspondent, friend of the show, Bill Werner, who's taking a little bit of time to join us here on KFGO. Bill, I always appreciate it, man. How you doing?
Hey, good. You, I hope, are doing fairly well. It's a little warmer anyway, right?
We peaked past 50 degrees, Bill. I'm not complaining whatsoever.
No, that's for sure. Yeah, we're getting some of that down here, too. I suppose it'll still be cold, but I think we're headed on the upswing now.
Yeah, it's helped pep people up a little bit. You can just tell with the longer nights, the warmer days, it's changed people's attitudes, at least where we are. Has it done that in the Capitol down in St. Paul?
Well, it's feeling like we're proceeding closer to the end of a legislative session, when the weather gets warm. Mm-hmm. But no, we've still got deadlock or stalemate or whatever you want to call it on this issue regarding COVID frontline worker bonuses, which has been intertwined. I'm not sure, maybe inextricably intertwined. We're going to have to see with the issue of backfilling, replenishing the unemployment insurance trust fund, mm-hmm. Which has been badly run down by claims from COVID, obviously, and that is still interlocked with the sides basically holding their positions, and there doesn't appear to be any movement toward compromise on that. And we had a deadline, at least what the Republicans said was a deadline yesterday, to either replenish that unemployment insurance fund, or that businesses in Minnesota will face an automatic tax increase to start backfilling it. But there's no agreement, and so we blew past that deadline, and we'll see what happens.
You say the Republicans picked that deadline as far as yesterday.
That's what they claim the deadline is. Yeah, the Democrats say know that there's really time still to fix this before the payments are actually due. The Republicans say, well, yeah, but the payments are due now, or the businesses are planning for the payments, and therefore we need to give them some sort of indication on whether they're going to have to pay or not. And what do you do if they pay, and then do you have to refund them, or what happens at that point? So that's their argument on it. The Democrats say, well, the actual date isn't here yet, so there's still time to act on this.
Well, if this does become a part of a package passed, I imagine they'll have to send. I don't know if it'd be a rebate or just say, hey, look, don't bother sending the check. We got your back. But that uncertainty's got to drive people crazy in the business world as well, Bill.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of folks. Chamber of Commerce, some of the other folks in the business community who testified some of the logistical problems of that. What this is all about is leverage on the part of both sides. I think it's reasonable to assume that Democrats want to delay so that they can try to get some leverage on Republicans to increase the amount of money that's available for frontline worker bonuses, COVID bonuses, and the Republicans are trying to get leverage by saying, well, okay, we need to have this. We need to have the unemployment insurance fund issue taken care of. And so far, there hasn't been. Apparently, the deadline is not real enough to force some sort of action. That's really what it comes right down to. Okay. And we'll see when we get closer to the end of April. In fact, which is realistically a little bit more of a hard deadline, whether something happens and whether this breaks it free.
If there's one thing I've learned in my conversations with you and learning more about Minnesota legislative sessions is, we have a hard deadline, but is it really that hard of a deadline when we're just, okay, everybody go home, take a breath, we'll reconvene in a special session in, say, a month's time, to where they'll have to tackle this again.
Yeah, we see that all the time in the state government shutdown or to the brink of state government shutdown, that the third week of May is the legislative adjournment deadline, but the real deadline is when portions of state government start to shut down. But is that really the deadline? Because not everything shuts down, and do people care in the middle of the summer? All those kind of things. So there's a lot of factors that play in.
Bill, one thing that a lot of people have cared a lot about, and I understand it, when we talk about unions, we talk about their ability to have leverage. Speaking of leverage, you talk about when it comes to payroll, frontline, all of that, leverage to try to get better pay, leverage to try to get more services within a school. teachers still on strike down in Minneapolis.
Yes.
I'm curious, has the mood shifted at all now that we're about a week into the strike?
Well, certainly the pressure has increased. As a matter of fact, one of the Minneapolis school board members resigned today, Josh Pauley. He took office in 2019, and his term was set to end in 2023. He wasn't planning on running for re-election, but he says that he's doing it in part because trust between board members in the district and the community is broken. Quoting him here, he says, "My doubts around district leadership are not new. I don't feel like I am in a place where I can work toward rebuilding trust with the current MPS, Minneapolis Public Schools leadership." So that gives you, that's at least the latest fallout as a result of this, a political piece of fallout, but clearly it's still a situation where the teachers are on the picket lines, students are home, and we've been that way. Well, now we're in week number 2.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing that I know that I think it was last week when you and I were having our check-in that teachers came to the Capitol, said, you know what, if the school district's not doing it, we got $9 billion here that you could help alleviate this. Has that caught any legs in the legislature? Or is that just, okay, well thanks for coming, get back to work, kids need an education type thing?
Yeah, they're certainly going to get support among Democrats for that. The Republicans are going to take a little different stance. They're going to say, well, but we need to have more accountability measures in place, and it was a bill introduced that would allow parents to grab the state funding for a period of time when teachers are out on strike, and in whatever district, but Minneapolis is obviously where it's applicable right now, but be able to take that portion of state funding that would otherwise go to the school district and grab that back and use it for whatever educational option they chose, whether it be private school or tutoring or whatever. Needless to say, that's not going to get much traction on the Democratic side, but some Republicans are pushing that as one particular option. It's real dramatic response, and some question whether it would be workable anyway, but it does kind of highlight the issue that we're at here.
That's one thing that I don't think people that are in the thick of this take a step back to just view the landscape, because you've got, when you talk about passion for or against unions in general, the one that draws out the most is when it comes to teachers and whether or not they should be able to strike, and the blowback in it. I mean, as you just pointed out, a bit extreme, if you want to look at it that way, is, well, look, this is a fault of the public school system. Here's why we got to have alternatives. People are going to latch onto that, not maybe in droves, but inch by inch if this keeps going into the near future.
Yeah, I think you're correct on the politics of that. Now, whether it has enough traction, enough momentum might be a better word, to overcome opposition, particularly on the Democratic side in the Minnesota House. And Democrats are pretty closely allied with the teachers union, and as is Governor Tim Walz, obviously, being a former teacher. Those are some pretty significant political obstacles to moving the dial there. But you're correct that the longer a teacher strike like this goes on, I think the more pressure there is for, what are called other things, but what essentially are vouchers, right, or school vouchers. They're given a lot of different names for reasons of political expediency or political correctness. But we will see, I think, the push for that increasing. Now, whether it ultimately gets any place, that, as I mentioned, there are significant political obstacles to that.
Bill, before I let you go, you bring up Governor Walz being a former teacher. Has he weighed in on this Minneapolis teacher strike at all?
Well, it's certainly something, the governor has said that he wants to have it end as quickly as possible. Has there been a lot of political positioning as a result of it? No, I would not say per se. I think we're going to see that political positioning come out, perhaps not play out in terms of the teachers' strike specifically in Minneapolis, but in terms of we're really into another state budgeting process because the surplus is so large. I mean, $9+ billion. That's a pretty big chunk of the state budget, about 20 or so percent. And so there are going to be decisions made in terms of will there be additional funding for schools? Will there be certain strings attached? Will there be some of the educational and teacher accountability measures that Republicans are pushing for? Will that be included? I think that is where this is going to play out.
Sure.
And it's a little bit early to actually have generally to have a governor weigh in on something like that. I mean, he stated his position clearly, but I'm talking about the nitty-gritty of negotiations. That's a ways away.
Very good. Bill, I got to get running here, but as always, my friend, I appreciate your check-in. We'll do it again next Wednesday, all right?
Absolutely. Always look forward to it. Everybody take care.
Yeah, you do the same there, man. Bill Warner, Capitol correspondent, Minnesota News Network. Get you some of these messages. We'll wrap up the first hour of Afternoons Live right after this. Now, if you've been paying attention to the bump songs, you probably put together that my producer, Eric Johnson, just put in the keyword time and just said click, 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 and then got them all lined up. Not necessarily in any particular order. As you can tell, that closing time should be right now at 3:05.
Call it wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's
Very
more
true.
selection too, because there are 600 entries in our library with the word time it. Now, some of those are doubled up, but conservatively call it 300 songs that have time in the title.
It's impressive. How original for all these individuals. You know what? It's 316 day. Stone Cold said so. I'm just throwing that out there. We're not going to play the audio. Last year we did, and we got calls from people upset about what Austin 316 means. And if you don't know, you can do the Google and watch that video for yourself. I'm not going to get back to my office and have all those angry calls at me again this year. Happy 316 day for all those that celebrate. Here's another thing that's trending today. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Monday Night Football. It's official. They're going to be heading on over to ESPN, leaving Fox. Joe Buck's not going to be doing the World Series call either. That was one thing that he was doing at Fox. So that's your Monday Night Football play-by-play and color commentary. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman have no idea what Fox is going to replace those two with for the America's Game of the Week. Time will tell on that. I see the time is now 3:06. It's time to get you caught up with KFGO News.
KFGO News, Fargo-Moorhead. It is mostly sunny. We have just hit 53. I'm Paul Juergens. The president of Ukraine addressed a joint session of Congress today and invoked Martin Luther King's famous speech to appeal to the U.S. to do more to help his country. Congressman Kelly Armstrong says the U.S. and our allies need to assess what more can be done and when.
I think you have to prepare for what are red lines. Where do these things exist that you have to engage? I mean, we know Article 5 of NATO is one of them. But on the other side, I mean, this is, like I said, they're targeting civilians. They targeted a hospital. They're targeting humanitarian supplies. These are real problems that the rest of the world has to stand up to.
In the hours following Zelensky's speech, President Biden announced an additional $800 million in military aid, as well as more anti-aircraft, anti-armor weapons, and drones to Ukraine to assist in its defense against Russia. A southern Minnesota mother says she has lost contact with her son in Ukraine. She fears the worst. Tina Hauser of Winona says the last time she spoke with her son was Saturday when he told her he was being forced by the Russian military to board a bus and leave his Ukrainian wife and daughter behind. She has been in contact with Senator Amy Klobuchar's office. A southeastern South Dakota man has been ordered to spend 60 days in jail for providing the marijuana in the brownies his mother unknowingly served to seniors at a card game. Michael Caranda had earlier pleaded guilty to a felony drug charge. A judge also sentenced Caranda of Tabor to 2 years of probation and ordered him to pay more than $3,400 in court costs and restitution. He must also write an apology letter to the seniors who ate the marijuana brownies. At his sentencing, Caranda expressed regret for his actions and its impact on others, including those who sought medical attention. Fargo-Moorhead, low 50s for our high this afternoon, a partly sunny sky. We'll be in the mid-20s overnight, partly cloudy. 35, partly sunny tomorrow and also Friday, mid-30s. 45, our high Saturday, and also mid-40s, mostly sunny Sunday. Mostly sunny, and again, it is 53 degrees. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
From not knowing if we were going to have a chance to really hear this song and when we were going to and how far back was it to be pushed, to getting a conversation with Chris Atterbury the day before exhibition starts, I believe, with Boston tomorrow. Chris, good to have you back, man. How you been?
I had not heard that song in a minute, so it's good to hear it again.
Yeah. There's a lot of people listening that are nodding their head saying, yeah, it is. Yeah. I can't tell you, and this is one thing that our friend Derek Hansen has brought up there's those of us that are such big fans, but you think about some of those that have lived and just bled for this Twins baseball season to get underway. Our friends that are, like in assisted living homes, they really wanted this. I'm so glad that they're going to be able to catch that right here on KFGO while you guys are out there broadcasting. Everybody's pretty pleased that we got Twins baseball coming.
Yeah, I mean, we made it hard, right?
Yeah.
Like I think you and I had talked about before any of that happened. It seemed like if it was possible to make it harder than it had to be, that's what was going to happen. But all we can do now is just be happy that there's going to be baseball. So, as you mentioned, they're going to start some semblance of spring games tomorrow, and rosters are anything but set. And we get to talk about actual players doing actual baseball things instead of a bunch of hypotheticals.
Yeah, twiddling our thumbs saying, well, where's the line to where we can't ask this question, we can talk to that person? No, that's all gone. We got baseball, it's back. And boy, did the Twins organization come back with, I think, quite a big splash with some of the transitions that they did, over the last week. Here's the sense that I got from just my little circle is that if you're going to be moving, this many people at this rate, you got to have something big coming. And now they're just sitting and wait for that, Chris. So I don't know if they're just convincing themselves. When I look at some of the moves, I'm like, okay, well, this makes sense. They've got Sonny Gray. Some of this is what we've been asking for. Not all of it, but some of it. I'm just curious, what's the sense you've gotten in the early days here?
I have no sense. I have no sense of it at all. I found out about the Garver deal from my friends in Texas who were all over me and doing cartwheels about acquiring Mitch Garver. Mm-hmm. And I was bummed out. I was like, okay, we got a guy who can play shortstop, but that's not great. And then all of a sudden Donaldson moves, and now I was kind of excited. And so it's a lot of moving pieces around on the board. And I don't know that you could say we're better or worse, right? Like, we gave up Garver. We ended up with Sanchez for Garver. If I'm picking one, I'm taking Garver. We still don't have a shortstop unless you think Urshela's a shortstop, but I don't think that's going to make Twins fans feel like we took a step forward. If Gio Urshela is your starting shortstop that you're going to plan on running out there every day. We saved a lot of money. We moved what I thought was a movable contract in Donaldson, so that's a plus. I think the one clear-cut thing is Sonny Gray is going to get the ball opening day, and that's a good thing. Yeah. Chase Petty, good luck. I hope he has a great career, but I'm not one who is going to wring too many hands over a guy who was just drafted, 18 years old, that is so far away. So I think we desperately needed a veteran who's got not only good pitches but kind of knows what it takes to lead a young staff, and I think Sonny Gray is that guy. So that unequivocally is a great move, but boy, it can't be the last one, or they're going to be asking to pitch still at this point in time. So
that's exactly.
I hope there's more coming, but I don't know.
There's a lot of refresh going on Twitter for my friends, is how I could just put it. Say, okay, when's the next move coming here? They've got to have something, right? This doesn't make sense where it stands now. We got a little bit. I want more. But had there not been some moves of making a bit of a splash, I think there would have been the kind of wringing of hands at least. And it's a small sample here that I'm referring to, and they're listening probably.
No, I mean, something had to happen, right? Yeah. It was an incomplete roster. And so you had the 99 days of the lockout to kind of put your wish list together. I know Derek said that the whole Donaldson, Gordvet, Tyner Falefa deal was a last-minute thing with the Yankees calling, and they acted on it. But you had to think that, like, the Sonny Gray deal was something that had been talked about before. I mean, I'm sitting here going, who's going to get the ball opening day? Is this a Vance Worley opening day situation? And so now you've got an actual legit guy to start on opening day. I think that's great. But, again, they said that Thorpe and Jacks are in the pen, so you're still looking at two guys who are so young and so inexperienced. They're not young in terms of their birth certificates, but in terms of their experience they are, in Ryan and Ober, that you just don't know workload-wise what they can handle in a rotation. Mm-hmm. Dobnak has been hit or miss, and again is incredibly inexperienced. And then Sonny Gray. That's not a major league rotation. So you need more bodies there. And they haven't answered the shortstop question. So the Sonny Gray deal, again, thumbs up. You've got money to work with now with the Donaldson deal. So the question remains, how do you get more arms? Who's going to play shortstop? And And then after that, it's just, can you get some guys like the Max Keplers of the world back on track?
This might be a dumb question, but I'm trying to think. Okay, Garver Gunn, what's our catcher situation here? Are we just kind of going to try people out?
Ryan Jeffers is our catcher, and Jeffers is a guy. I love the guy, and he was a second-round pick by the Twins, but he really struggled offensively last year. Now he said he's changed some things and he's figured it out, and that's what you're supposed to say. And he's a smart guy, so I hope he's right. He struggled to throw runners out. He was a little better in the minor leagues. I had one opposing manager, tell me every time he goes on a knee, we're running this last year. And so he'll be tested. Sanchez is not known as a defensive stalwart either. So Jeffers is the guy in some sort of a platoon situation with Sanchez. But there again, it's a great opportunity for a young player that this regime drafted and has developed, but far from a certainty in any way, shape, or form.
Chris Adbear is our guest, studio host here at Minnesota Twins. This is brought to you by Linex Fargo-Moorhead. You can find them on Main and West Fargo for all your Trek accessories and so much more. Health-wise, I mean, is there anybody you're watching that, okay, I think about it, Rogers, right? Had a finger issue last year. Has that persisted? Are we coming into this exhibition tomorrow and the regular season relatively healthy with who's on the roster right now?
So I don't think that even the teams really know. Okay. Like we saw with this Tatis deal, right? Like he got in a motorcycle accident, but he couldn't talk to any of the team doctors because of the lockout. So I think a lot of that is to be determined, and then teams are going to have to chart a path, especially with the pitchers. I would expect we're only going to see minor league pitchers pitching in these games for quite a while because the big league 40-man guys haven't been able to throw yet. As far as Taylor, I spoke with Taylor often before the lockout, and then we weren't allowed to. I've talked with him a couple times since. He's fine. He's good to go. I think that the one I'm eager to see is Kirilloff, and by all accounts, he's good to go after his surgery. But I think he's a guy who has a big part in what the Twins are going to do this year. So let's hope that Alex Kirilloff is fully recovered after his surgery. And then after that, I think we just literally don't know.
Yeah, Chris, you just mentioned the lockout being prohibited from who you can and can't talk to. I'm just curious, how do you handle that in a role that you're a broadcaster? I mean, the thing that you thrive on, that you've said in our previous years of doing this is, getting to know these guys, getting a sense of how things are. How difficult is that saying, you know what, you are prohibited from picking up the phone, you can't text? Walk me through that.
Yeah, it was weird. Primarily, most of the bulk of that time, the questions are what's going on, and I couldn't just say, hey, Taylor, what's going on? Yeah. But mostly it was just social stuff, like he's a big Bronco guy. So when Russell Wilson signs with the Broncos, like I couldn't reach out and just jab him about that. Just social stuff, touching base. How's your family? What are you up to? And that part was weird. So the way I approached it was, look, I as a radio guy for a team, am the least important element here. I'm just going to shut down. I didn't track the talks. Yeah. I didn't do anything. I just said, okay, I'm on a need-to-know basis, and I guess someone will tell me if and when I need to know anything. It obviously scrambled spring training. I was supposed to be down there even now. Now I won't be down there at all. You won't have a chance to talk to guys until the regular season starts. You move guys like a Garver, who's one of the last core guys that kind of came up at a time when we really had the ability to develop those relationships, back when we were on Caravan and we were doing a lot of events with the players. So it's going to be a whole new clubhouse. But what I'll say is the thing I was really worried about that we discussed last year was access. Where do we get our access back? And we got that. So I'm pumped. I'm not worried about anything now. Let those guys work. Whatever 26 dudes are on the roster, when it's game time, we'll get to work worrying about those guys. And I'll be very excited to be able to once again walk into the clubhouse and work on forging those relationships.
Well, you know what? We're glad baseball's back. Chris, we're glad to have you back here on Afternoons Live as well. I'm going to let you go. You take care, my friend. We'll chat again soon, all right?
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm glad we're back. Corey and Danny, you got a couple weeks where the game's calling down there. And then the three of us are ready to bring you guys what should be really an interesting year. I know people are kind of down on the prospects in terms of the guessing win totals and whatnot. But you give me a young, hungry team any day of the week, and I am excited to watch them play, and I think we have some of the pieces for that.
Well, we're excited to be listening to it right here in the home for Twins baseball, KFGO. Chris, my friend, you take care. We'll chat again soon.
All right, see you.
All right, yeah, you bet. Chris Atterbury, studio host of your Minnesota Twins. It's brought to you by Linux. You can go to Linux.com as well to check out all their truck accessories and so much more. You're going to get you some of these messages. Coming back to your messages in the text club right after this. Nine four eight. You can text into the Eye Consultants of North Dakota text club. That is 35270. I'll give you an update on what's happened earlier today when it goes with the United States, Ukraine, Putin. It started off as President Zelensky held a televised conversation or a televised speech to a joint session in Congress. They watched, they listened. There was a video that was played during Zelensky's remarks that if you have not seen, it is difficult to watch, but you best not turn away from it. To watch what is unfolding over there, the tragedy, the hostilities, the murder, the war crimes that are taking place over there. Now, what Zelensky's asking, and no one, or at least I don't fault him at all for saying, look, we need more assistance, and if you could do a no-fly zone, that's what we really need. Some people are there. I'm not. I'm not on the no-fly zone yet. The thing that we are doing and that we did yet again today was provide more of the munitions of what, in fact, we're providing, because after that, you had the President of the United States saying we're going to provide $800 million more in military aid to Ukraine. Now, I think this put us at close to $1 billion over the last week. You had Congress. They put in a couple of million earlier this week. I don't remember the exact figure offhand here, but we're providing this. It couldn't have been done sooner. I think so, as far as some of the defense things when we talk about the transfer of MiGs when it comes from Poland to all this. Why all of a sudden we said, yep, this is going to happen, then all of a sudden, well, we better pump the brakes here. That can be avoided at this point. But here's what we sent over today. 800 anti-aircraft systems, 9,000 anti-armor systems. You got 7,000 small arms. We're talking firearms, grenades, 20 million rounds of ammo and drones as part of this whole thing that we sent over, anti-air systems, which is a part of what I think President Zelensky's asked. And what our president said earlier today is Putin is a war criminal. And I said he is. Yeah, that is a straight shot. That is a fact of truth. Because you're watching day after day what's unfolding. And if you haven't, again, I encourage you to watch that video that Zelensky played earlier today. When you are indiscriminately shooting at people waiting for bread that are Ukrainian civilians, when you're bombing maternity hospitals, when you're now, the reports coming out that they are bombing a theater that was a shelter for civilians that are fleeing their homes because of this indiscriminate shelling that's happening minute after minute, you're damn right Putin's a war criminal. Now, coming from the president versus coming from a talk show host carries a lot more weight. And one thing that the Kremlin put out saying that's unacceptable and unforgivable. Well, that's the response there. Now, if this escalates any further because of Biden correctly calling Putin a war criminal, we do not know. Your thoughts on this situation is what I want as well. Are you there to where, all right, it's time for that no-fly zone, get U.S. pilots, get U.S. jets out there, or is that a bridge too far for you? War criminal being called on Putin. I think it's the correct saying. Your thoughts when we come back after KFGO News.
KFGO News, Fargo-Moorhead, mostly sunny, 52. I'm Paul Jurgens. The president of Ukraine addressed a joint session of Congress today, shared a video depicting the human toll of the war, invoking Pearl Harbor and 9/11 in his appeal to the U.S. for more help. North Dakota's delegation attended that speech and supported the call for additional aid. Congressman Kelly Armstrong says President Zelensky did an effective job of painting a picture of the atrocities being committed by Vladimir Putin's forces, and said the U.S. needs to assess what more it can do to help. Senator Kramer says Zelensky's speech should motivate the U.S. to do more. Hours after Zelensky's speech, the Biden administration committed to $800 million in additional military aid, as well as more anti-aircraft, anti-armor weapons, and drones to Ukraine. The trucking industry has been hit hard, not only by a shortage of drivers, but record-high diesel fuel prices. Eric Grove, president of the North Dakota Motor Carriers Association, calls it a double whammy.
You know, we went through 2008, 2009. We saw some pretty severe spikes at that time. And honestly, at this point, we've already surpassed, those levels. So, and in my tenure, that's about the hardest time that I remember as well. When we went through, we're in some uncharted territory here.
Grove, a regional manager for Magnum Trucking, a shipping giant based in Fargo, says the record high diesel fuel prices are not only putting a strain on trucking companies, but will also fuel consumer inflation. Vern Thompson of Fargo agrees. He's a trucker that runs what he calls a mom-and-pop operation.
It's not a good sign when I've talked to some other truckers that are deciding, it's too expensive, we're going to park and we're going to go to work for somebody else. That's why I say it's a perfect storm with events taking place. I've never seen it before.
The average price for diesel today in North Dakota, $4.71 a gallon. A month ago, the average was about $3.78. 52. This is KFGO News. You're listening to KFGO News. When the Board of Higher Education meets for its retreat this summer, one of the issues will be declining student enrollment in North Dakota. Board member John Warford.
The taxpaying citizens aren't happy. The legislators aren't happy. The faculty aren't happy. So I think that, we need to be very, very proactive.
University System Chancellor Mark Haglerot told the board's Academic and Student Affairs Committee that recruitment may require some outside-the-box thinking. Haglerot says North Dakotans are often the best spokespeople in order to get new talent to come to the state. He says everyone's a recruiter, not just admission staff. 10 Republicans and 8 Democrats have filed to run in the May 24th primary election in southern Minnesota's 1st congressional district. The seat became vacant upon the death of Republican Congressman Jim Hagedorn. Candidates include a former state GOP chair, current and past legislators, and business and community leaders. Winners of the special primary advance to the August 9th special election. The winner of that election will serve the balance of Hagedorn's term through the end of the year. A 15-year-old relative is accused of stabbing a 19-year-old woman to death in Duluth. The victim was found just minutes after police had left the home following a previous call. Officers originally responded to a disturbance call. Police later left after speaking with the family member and determining there had been no assault. About 10 minutes later, officers were called back to the house where they found the woman dead at the scene. The boy is in a juvenile detention center on a charge of second-degree murder. If you recognize this music...
Myron? Thank you.
You most likely recognize who it is. That's Myron Florin, known as the fastest hand on the accordion, the Happy Norwegian, and a major part of the Lawrence Welk music family. A South Dakota native, Florin died in 2015, but his memory certainly goes on. The National Music Museum on the campus of the University of South Dakota in Vermilion is the recipient of a new addition to its collection of amazing instruments. The chairman of the board of the National Music Board is Scott Lawrence.
Myron Florin, his accordion collection has been donated to the museum. It's a recent addition to the long-running stuff we got down there, and we might even get a little pitch in that the legislature helped us out a little bit this year.
KFGO Weather Center forecast. Fargo-Moorhead low 50s this afternoon. We did hit 53 a short time ago, now at 52. Partly sunny. Mid-20s overnight, partly cloudy tomorrow and Friday. Partly sunny, at least tomorrow, then more sun on Friday, mid-30s both days, 45 Saturday and Sunday. Again, it's 52 degrees. Paul Jerkins, News Radio, KFGO.
Rusty Alverson back at the KFGO studio.
Yes, sir.
And we're talking Ukraine. I got a lot of messages in. I know that's something that you were following along earlier when it comes to agriculture.
Man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's so many variables to consider
on
all fronts here. But.
Yeah, analysts trying to figure out what this means for world food supplies. I mean, when it comes to inflation for food, for fuel. Over the weekend, CBS Face the Nation, they talked about it could be a year of inflation, Tyler. And folks are just trying to figure it out. And Zolt Vince is the vice president for R.J. O'Brien, based in St. Paul, Minnesota. He was on an NCI webinar earlier today talking about the situation. And Vince says inputs are in question for the upcoming planting season as well as manpower.
And we have reports from fairly large-size operations where one outfit with 15,000 hectare, they had 46 farm workers, and they lost all but 3 to the war. So that's the other part of the equation that manpower on the farming operations is going to be in short supply because simply the men are fighting the Russians.
The planting campaign very much in question, Tyler. Nobody knows.
Yeah. Well, and that was one thing I remember when we had Frey and Olson on, because I wanted to have him on talking about what this might do to wheat prices, and he goes, "We don't even know if they're going to be able to get into the field."
Exactly.
And yeah, if they're choosing to fight, which quite frankly, a lot of them are choosing to do just that in Ukraine.
Yeah.
They're not going to get the plant.
Yeah. Jolt saying during the webinar today, some of these folks have the option. These Ukrainian people are picking up arms and they are defending their country. And they have the option to put down those arms and go back to the tractor and plant. But they want to defend their country.
Well, and it's taken us all back by watching what they're choosing to do to defend their country, their livelihoods as well over there, SDU.
Yeah.
Appreciate you bringing that in.
Yeah, you bet.
It's they're making the decision over there to do this, and you have to admire them for that.
Yep.
I'm going to let you go. We'll pick things up tomorrow. How's that?
Roger.
It's Thursday already tomorrow. Remember, it's St. Patrick's Day, so wear your green. And we got audibles. So
don't be pinching me now.
No, it all depends on how good you do and if you're wearing green. You can't wait till tomorrow to learn more about what Rusty or Sarah's been up to. You can go to kfgo.com, click on that agriculture tab. I'm going to come back to all these messages awaiting me, whether it's about the Putin being a war criminal or being in favor or against a no-fly zone. That's all coming up right after the CBS News. And is whether or not you agree with President Biden calling Putin a war criminal. I do. And where you sit on this no-fly zone, you have Zelensky asking for that. Don't fault them for it. But you have to take into account what that would do if you've got American pilots and American planes fighting over Ukraine in real time and what that could do. Now, some people are going to make the argument, well, Tyler, we're already supplying, which we're even supplying more today, to the tune of $800 million more worth, going over to Ukraine for them to use against Russia, against those Russian soldiers who reports coming from and out of Ukraine are now beginning to indiscriminately shoot at civilians standing in line waiting for bread, to drop bombs on hospitals, to drop bombs on theaters where you've got them taking refuge away because their home's been destroyed, civilians. Tyler, I'm not on the no-fly zone, and I'm also not on another $800 million. Where's my handout? There's a real struggle in America. But hold on. Your handout, I mean, you're going to consider us helping somebody fight off an aggressor as a handout? Because here's what, we've got struggles in America. I'm not going to argue that. But here's what could, if you do not assist now in some shape or form, and the route we're choosing right now is to help supply Ukrainians who are fighting an aggressor in Vladimir Putin, who's looking at NATO, looking at our allies. If he takes on and gets control over Ukraine and decides, I'm not stopping here, there's going to be even more struggle in America because of the disruption that would cause. You think about Article 5. You heard it from Congressman Armstrong in an update not long ago during KFGO News. That's going to force our hand into this. So this whole, we got struggles here. You're right. We can address those, but that doesn't mean we just turn the other way and say, well, Ukraine, you're literally on your own. We're not only doing a no-fly, we're not going to do a no-fly zone. We're not going to supply you with things. Count me out on that. Another one, Tyler. I believe Putin will never give in because he feels he would be perceived as weak. Sooner or later, I think the West is going to have to get involved in the ground. Excuse me. A.K.A. World War III. Putin will go to any lengths to win unless one of his inner circles takes him out or the Russian army surrenders. I think any weapons are on the table. The other thing that I heard Joe Biden say today is, look, I got to be straight with you, and I'm paraphrasing here, that this is going to take quite some time. That this is going to be a long, drawn-out affair. We can have headlines splashed out there saying, hey, there's negotiations between Ukraine and Russia diplomats, but then you can also watch what's happening on the ground in Ukraine and say those talks are just that. It doesn't look like there's any de-escalation from Russia and Putin's guys. I mean, they're still shelling by the hour in some of these major cities. So the thing here that I think worries a lot of people is, where does he draw a line, if at all? I don't know that he does. And I think the more he gets caged in or cornered in the place where he's only put himself, because this is on him. He did this. He chose to invade. He chose to be the aggressor. And now he finds himself in a very weak position to where if he's cornered in, what does he do? At what lengths he goes? Nobody knows that. And that's the scary part of this. There's warnings that, well, they could at least go with chemical weapons. Then what? Is that the line that needs to be drawn? Say you do this, all of a sudden that no-fly is taking place? I don't know. But here's the other thing. When you have the president of the United States saying Putin is a war criminal, he is spot on correct. It's a truthful statement. I don't care if they say, well, this is unforgivable from the Kremlin, because it's the truth. Thoughts came in on that. This one you might want to sit down for. Tyler, if blowing up a hospital makes Putin a war criminal, better lock him up with Obama. The Kunduz hospital was struck in October 2015. Of course, Obama apologized and paid the victims $6,000, so it's okay. You're going to tell me by texting in right now that you're comparing Barack Obama to Vladimir Putin? Good God. I mean, the situation's on top of that just wholly different. You have Putin, who is a war criminal. He invaded a country. He is indiscriminately and on purpose bombing hospitals. His guys are out there shooting civilians waiting for food. And you're going to compare that to an incident from the United States that was, as they declared, an accident. The 16 U.S. service personnel were held accountable. You had 42 people who did unfortunately die in that tragedy, but it was an accident and those people were held accountable. In no way can you, with a straight face, compare Barack Obama to Vladimir Putin. Don't go there. I mean, I don't know if you're one of the individuals that's running around these conventions that had the shirt. If you recall, there was people proudly wearing a shirt that said, "I'd rather be Russian than a Democrat." Don't go there while you're watching this unfold and people are dying because of an invasion by Vladimir Putin. You cannot compare the two, no matter how hard you try. 237-5948-3527. More messages in. I'll get to all those right after this weather update from Eric Johnson, and we'll wrap up hour number 2 of Afternoon is Live next. About 8 minutes until the top of the hour, and we'll get you to that 4 o'clock whistle. CBS National News. We'll check back in with Paul Juergens. I'm going to get to the phone lines and visit with Ron if I click the right button here. Ron, thanks for hanging on. What's on your mind today, man?
Hello?
Yeah, Ron, you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to talk about Minnesota legislature for a second.
Okay, what's on your mind?
You know, we're sick and tired of both the Democrats and the Republicans. They've got a little scam going on. They can't get their job done in the allotted time. They're being paid good money. Some of us are starting a petition that if you can't get your job on time, then if you work overtime for special sessions, you do not get paid.
Amen, Ron. I couldn't. These special sessions, because they can't get their job done in that allotted time, and then they just, we'll just come back in and get reconvened by the governor. It's nonsense. It's complete. Yeah. They do it every damn year, Ron.
How right you are. You're perfect. And get your damn job and forget about your party. Work for the people.
Ron, you said you're getting a petition together. You're gathering signatures. What needs to be done for you?
Well, truthfully, enough people to go through the entire state and get it put on the ballot that get the job done or that's it. Yeah. They're pulling in too darn much money, even during COVID.
Ron, you get that petition circulating around, you call back in. We'll tell people where to go to get that thing signed.
Okay, thanks a lot. You're a good guy.
Well, thanks, Ron. I mean, you have a window that you're supposed to get things done. Now, I get Minnesota, you've got a divided government. You're one of just 2, 3 in the entire country here that you have this. You got to negotiate. But to have this, we're just going to, I drew my line, you drew yours, then we're going to stare at each other, let that clock strike midnight, and then, we'll go home, kick some rocks around, and we'll get back out here, and then we'll just start over from the same lines and stare at each other for a little bit. Oh, but we're getting paid to do that? There's got to be a sense of urgency here when it comes to getting things done. I mean, if you're a business in Minnesota and you're looking at the whole unemployment, the payroll situation, and what you're going to potentially have to be covering that if they don't act, or if you were one of those individuals that they were telling you, hey, you busted your behind during that same COVID situation, that frontline worker, don't worry, we're gonna say a thanks, we're gonna provide you this. None of that has been done. None of it. And I mean, we visit with our buddy Bill, and it's they haven't moved. Both sides dug in more, week after week after week. And at some point, time will, I guess, technically run out, but then they just move the goalposts. Come back in a couple weeks. We'll cover the rooms. We'll cover the food. Oh, yeah, and we'll pay you to do this that you just should have done during your regular work time. Nonsense. 35270. I'm going to get back to the text club here. Tyler, will Putin face any consequences for being a war criminal? You know, visiting with Dakota Rudisill and Thomas Ambrosio and others that are experts on a variety of things, the history of this whole thing, the intelligence side of this, it seems they've been pretty universal in saying that he will not face anything. He won't end up in The Hague. You will not get him. You know, and that's why I had asked the last time, I think it was Professor John Cox up at NDSU, who specializes in teaching this in Eastern Europe history, about these sanctions that are impacting average Russians more than what. I mean, you've seen the shelves empty over there. People are pulling out. Their ruble's worth nothing. To where is that going to force, or is the intent to force the upswell within Russia to do something with their own, I guess, leadership? And I'm using that term very loosely here. And he said, yeah, that is the intent. That's where I think the end game is hoping, or people are hoping that's where it's going to go. Will it ever? Who knows? I've got some more messages coming. I tell you what, this last hour, we're going to keep on with it. You, me, this microphone, your cell phone, the whole rest of the way. I'm Tyler Axis. You got it locked in to Afternoons Live on 790 AM and 104.7 FM KFGO. Is this Darius Rucker or Hootie?
No. This is
Sounds
a
like him.
band called Old Dominion. Song for Another Time.
I was way off. A lot of messages into the iConsults of North Dakota Text Club, and I'll get to those. But one thing that's happening on my personal phone, and I cannot be alone in this, I have gotten more spam calls over the last month than what I can ever remember. I mean, multiple times a day. Are you out there getting the same thing? I mean, the only thing that I could think of, and it's not all just about extended warranty on a vehicle I haven't owned in 3 years. I've been on the receiving end of those from time to time. I don't know if it's because it's tax filing season or what, but boy, spam call after spam call. Of course, I'm not one that typically answers, but they'll leave just the generic robotic voice. Are you seeing that out there? Are you receiving those calls as well? Let me know at 35270. I'll come back to the text club and all my thoughts on this Ukraine war, Putin, and get yours out as well. But I got to get to Paul Jurgens in that KFGO News Center.
KFGO News, Fargo-Moorhead 52. I'm Paul Jurgens. The president of Ukraine addressed a joint session of Congress today. He shared a video depicting the human toll of the war and invoked Pearl Harbor and 9/11 to appeal to the U.S. for more help. North Dakota's congressional delegation attended that speech and supports the call for additional aid. Congressman Kelly Armstrong says President Zelensky did an effective job of painting a picture of the atrocities being committed by Vladimir Putin's forces and said the U.S. needs to assess what more it can do to help. Senator Kramer says Zelensky's speech should motivate the U.S. to do more. North Dakota's Mineral Resources Director says even with high oil prices, oil companies are reluctant to bring more drilling rigs to the Bakken. Lynn Helm says one reason is workforce. He says another reason is the Biden administration policies.
I counted 13 policy decisions that have been made over the last year and a half that were all negative to oil and gas, and none of those have been reversed in light of the current world shortage for crude oil.
A Minneapolis man has been charged with having a gun illegally and child endangerment for shooting a 2-year-old in the face. The victim's mother called 911 and told officers she was sleeping in the same room with the child when his screams woke her up. She says he was bleeding from his face. Kendall Hampton met police in the lobby and told them he was a neighbor who had come to see what happened. Although officers told him to remain there, he left and refused to return. The boy suffered critical injuries but is now in stable condition. A southeastern South Dakota man has been ordered to spend 2 months in jail for providing the marijuana in the brownies his mother unknowingly served to seniors at a card game. Michael Caranda had earlier pleaded guilty to a felony charge. A judge also sentenced Caranda of Tabor to 2 years of probation and ordered him to pay more than $3,400 in court costs and restitution. He must also write an apology letter to the seniors who ate the marijuana brownies. KFGO Weather Center forecast. Fargo-Moorhead, we did hit 53 at our Southside studios this afternoon. Now at 52 overnight. We look for 25, partly cloudy. Tomorrow, 35, a partly sunny day. Also for Friday, 35, mostly sunny. Mid-40s both Saturday and Sunday. Mid-40s Monday, partly sunny. There'll be a slight chance of light rain, maybe mixed with a little light snow. Tuesday, partly sunny. A light rain chance, a light snow chance, 40 to 45. Again, it's 52. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
Say that there's some passion that's in the text club would be a bit of an understatement on some of the other messages I've read and reacted to. I'll share those out right now. Tyler, what an idiot. Handouts. I wonder how many COVID checks he cashed. Comes in about somebody saying they're not in favor of the $800 or $800 million. Where's my handout? Which I took issue with, and I certainly wasn't the only one here. Tyler, is that, and if you're just joining us, we got into this whole, here's what Zelensky asked for, here's what the U.S. is providing. Biden called Putin a war criminal, and he's correct 100% on that. And that elicited some strong emotions from texters and myself. And so this one comes in because I said he's correct in calling him a war criminal because of the atrocities you're seeing, bombing of maternity hospitals, of the reports that are coming out that there's people waiting for bread that were shot online, 10 casualties there. Those indiscriminate killings of civilians is a war criminal. This was asking Tyler, is that coming from our media or is that coming from their media? Just wondering because I know they want us to get involved, which we should definitely not. Comes in. The maternity ward, I think, was verified by other, I think, like, the BBCs of the world. The one that was earlier today, there's two things that happened today that angered me, as you can clearly tell if you've been listening for the last half hour. The one where there was the report of people being shot who were waiting in line for bread. That one, I do not know if it has been independently verified. I know that others from those sources have shared that that's what's being reported on the ground. The one, though, that I do believe at this time has been independently verified from people outside of Ukraine is the fact that there was a theater that was bombed, and that theater was housing civilians that had fled from their homes because those were also being attacked. So those two instances have me a little riled up, as it should you, in my opinion, as you're watching this. That's why when we talk about what are you willing to do? I mean, at the very least, yep, I'm willing. Send them more. Send more. As much as we can, because they are the front line. I mean, that's the bottom line. They are the front line of the aggressive Vladimir Putin. And they've exposed him, quite frankly, as being not militarily mighty as what everybody thought, not having perhaps all this, intricacies of understanding how this is going to all unfold. The way this unfolded, I'm sure in his eyes and the world's eyes, is the complete opposite of what people expected. I mean, remember when it started, when our intelligence was even saying we expected it'll take 3 days to take Kyiv? What are we on, 3 weeks now, and they still haven't been able to accomplish that because of their shoddy materials, their worn out supplies, all of that. Tyler, there will never be another world war. We are too economically interconnected. Cover the air. Putin as a sissy comes in. Tyler, put your head in the sand, but you should try and open your mind instead of just flying off the handle when someone critiques Obama's actions overseas. When the national media and you go on and on about foreign policy, but don't try and get a full understanding of issues in this country, that's a big problem. Now, if you want to talk about heads in the sand, take a moment here. Because I know that you sent in a text earlier saying nobody cares about what's going on in foreign affairs. We've got issues right here. Your head is in the sand if you cannot understand what's going on between Russia and Ukraine is impacting what is going on here. When you think about supply chains, when you think about that whole energy situation, we talk about farmers probably not getting into the fields in Ukraine because they are taking up arms against Russia, and what that might do to, say, food supplies, what that might do to the commodity prices here, what that might do to fertilizer. It's all, as this other person just said, we're so interconnected. Your head is in the sand if you don't understand that what's going on right there is impacting what's going on locally right here. I mean, the entire world should be watching as this does unfold. Can we acknowledge there's issues here? You bet. And I say we do a pretty damn good job of talking about those right here. You might not agree with my take on it, but I don't think we run and hide from any of it. Tyler, the texter comparing Barack Obama to Putin reminds me of why I no longer associate with my neighbor, parents of my children's high school classmates, and wonder about North Dakota values. Shaking my head right now. See, and I'll push back. I don't say that's the North Dakota values, and I don't know where that individual's from. That text that in clearly struck a nerve with me because the situations, and you're dang right that I take some offense to it because you cannot compare that accident in which the United States held the 16 service personnel responsible and accountable for that, to what you're watching unfold right now. Tragic as it was, of what happened in Afghanistan with those 42 people that died at that hospital. Tragic. There's not questioning that, but you got to question motives. You got to question all of that in relation. The two are not comparable when you're throwing around the word of a war criminal, which is what started this whole conversation, because that's what Biden, in my opinion, correctly said that Vladimir Putin is. 35270, they're coming in left and right here. Tyler, America needs to know what's going on in Ukraine. Should not have to happen. If we would have a strong leader and be respected in the world, there would be peace. Strength through peace. No way this would have happened under Trump, period. Let's take a shot at that one, shall we? Because this whole, do you recall the first impeachment? Or was it the second one? I don't remember. But one of the impeachments was because that administration and that president told the president we're discussing right now and Zelensky, saying, you know what, this military aid, I need you to do me a favor first. And so for all these politicians coming out today saying we should have acted sooner, and some of those were the same one that gave that action a pass, that voted to just acquit that president, and Donald Trump saying, okay, well, I know we approved this military aid to Ukraine and you got in the way of that, but don't worry, we're just going to turn the other way. Those are some of the same people out there pounding tables now saying we should have acted sooner. I mean, can we go back in you remember the withdrawal of the Ukraine support with the GOP platform of working on getting weapons to Ukraine? That was done by the reports from the Trump campaign to the Republican National Committee, that illegally withholding weapons from Ukraine. We're pulling troops out of Europe, which some people applauded. Europe being the whole NATO alliance, floating that, in fact, the United States was going to leave NATO. And it wasn't just 3 weeks ago that same individual, you're saying this would have never happened under, said that Putin's a genius for his invasion. So don't sell that here. I'm not buying at all. 237-5948. Laney studio line. You can also continue to text in to 35270, the Ag Consultants of North Dakota Text Club. Get you some of these messages, and I'll come back to yours right after this. You know, I appreciate, all the text messages coming in, not just those that are agreeing with me. There's a lot that don't. But this one, Matt wins Audibles tomorrow. Let me tell you something. And then they apologize. Audibles tomorrow. Matt English ain't going to be here. Class B boys. J.J. Gordon probably not. I think he's getting investigated for performance-enhancing materials. Because there's no way he walks in like he did 2 weeks ago and just completely dominates without some questions that need some answers. But we'll tell you who is in fact playing Audibles tomorrow because we got a lot of show left today. It's St. Patrick's Day tomorrow as well, so we might have a little bit more in store for you. But in the meantime, this final half hour, we'll simmer down now. But the situation, it needs to be talked about. There's people taking issue with that, but as other people are texting in here, Tyler, Americans need to know what's going on in Ukraine. It should not have happened. Okay, that one is the one I got. I'm trying to find which one here. Tyler, what's going on in Ukraine is a national security risk to the United States. How can your texter not understand that? Another one, Tyler, Ukrainian military needs to cut the head off the snake. Well, that's what they're asking for. This is the front line, and it will be for quite some time. And, there's people saying, well, is Ukraine really trying, when it comes to the media? And I don't want to put words in the mouth or in the text that came in, but wondering if some of these media reports were from Ukraine or from, other verified sources. The whole getting NATO involved has two sides of this. You've got Putin in a corner hoping for anything to give him a reason to escalate even beyond the war crimes he's doing now. And if you give him that out, it would be the fact that NATO gets involved. Not saying it's going to end well for him, but he's hoping for anything right now. So there's the whole, what are they trying to kind of pull the carrot in front of us to get us involved as well? And that's why I think some of these reports coming out to what they're doing indiscriminately raises those questions. It certainly raises my blood pressure and raises my anger about what we're watching here. Tyler, stupid and brain-dead Trumpers can't be fixed. Another one, Tyler, them righties have all the answers, but they never get anything done except for tax cuts for the rich. More, Tyler, thanks for believing and promoting science instead of science fiction. Tyler, if we go to war, it's going to cost us a lot more. I agree. That's why I ask you where the line is drawn in your mind, because there's people that are out there saying we've got to have the no-fly zone. Get it out there. But did you take a step back to question what that would mean as a follow-up? That's why I keep coming back to American pilots, American planes over Ukraine fighting Russian pilots and Russian planes. It's not going to end right there. Tyler, Russia took Crimea under Obama, and now Ukraine under Biden. Didn't take anything under Trump, won't dare. He almost took NATO. Here's what I will say about the Crimea thing. I do think that was a huge blunder. And because of what little happened to Putin after he took that on a global scale, that certainly probably opened the door in his mind to do that extra little inch, which he's trying, and a whole mile more in Ukraine. I will give you that. But if you can't acknowledge, again, the fact that it was Trump's campaign that got the Republican platform to remove the whole pro-Ukraine language from their platform, that he, because he wanted dirt on Biden, tried to illegally withhold weapons that was approved by Congress, and then Congress on the Republican side said that's okay. He announced we're pulling U.S. troops out of Europe. He's floated the idea that we would just leave NATO. If you can't acknowledge that, then this isn't a fair conversation either. The other thing that Putin has wanted besides expanding Russian territory is weakening NATO, weakening democracies. More messages coming in. 35270. And I'll get this one out because this person is getting beat up a little bit in the text club. Tyler, I understand it's a global market and that those things impact us, but all politics are local. And what do we have the ability to control? America, that's what. We don't elect politicians to govern the world. We want them to run this country. Hasn't happened for many, many years. The But again, I come back to the fact that the global market, there are things that we certainly should not take our eyes off here locally, domestically. I mean, we've all been in, well, I shouldn't say we all, a lot of us were saying, you know what, got to get that infrastructure bill done, right? All right, it's done. Post office, hey, they came out with some resolution there. Those things still certainly top of mind, but if you don't pay attention to what's over there, and if you don't stop it from spreading further, those issues locally here are going to be expounded upon and much worse. All right, we're going to get you caught up with KFGO News, see what Paul Jurgen's been working on. We can continue the conversation, certainly a lot coming in. And also, I've got some other stupid headlines we can share with you as well in the final half hour. Wednesday afternoon is rolling on. KFGO time is 4:28. I'm Tyler Axtis, your host, and Eric Johnson's our producer. We're with you till 5 o'clock right here on the Mighty 790.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Otter Tail Power Company, positively impacting communities they serve for more than a century.
Fargo-Moorhead, mostly sunny. It's 52. I'm Paul Jurgens. If you have travel plans to Manitoba or elsewhere, Canada will no longer require a pre-arrival COVID test for vaccinated travelers as of April 1st. A senior government official confirmed the change. Last month, the Canadian health minister announced that travelers going to Canada would be able to present a negative rapid antigen test at the border as an alternative to a more costly molecular test. The U.S. still requires a negative COVID test to enter this country. The president of Ukraine addressed a joint session of Congress today with a plea for more help from this country. Congressman Kelly Armstrong talked about the historic nature of that speech.
Both chambers in there listening to a guy who obviously never expected this, but has really kind of found the moment. And I've been around Congress long enough to know when applause are, because you applaud, and applause because people were really proud to be a part of that. And now we just have to transfer that into smart action that helps a democracy against a dictator who's being a bully.
Senator Kevin Cramer said in a statement today that President Zelensky's speech should motivate the use of the U.S. to do more. A southern Minnesota mother says she has lost contact with her son in Ukraine and she fears the worst. Tina Hauser of Winona says the last time she spoke with her son was Saturday when he told her he was being forced by the Russian military to board a bus and leave his Ukrainian wife and daughter behind. 52. This is KFGO News. 52 degrees. You're listening to KFGO News. A Minneapolis man has been charged with having a gun illegally and child endangerment for shooting a 2-year-old in the face. The victim's mother called 911 and told officers she was sleeping in the same room with the child when his screams woke her up. She says he was bleeding from the face. Kendall Hampton met police in the lobby and told them he was a neighbor who had come to see what happened. Although officers told him to remain there, he left and refused to return. The boy suffered critical injuries but is now in stable condition. Republicans say because Minnesota's unemployment insurance trust fund was not given more money before the deadline, businesses will soon be hit with an automatic tax increase. KFGO News Capital correspondent Bill Werner.
Democrats say there is still time to avoid that, and they first want Republicans to agree to $1 billion for COVID frontline worker bonuses. Senate Majority Leader Jeremy Miller says Republicans are more than happy to continue discussing the previously agreed on $250 million. However,
our proposal we like better. The proposal that Senate Republicans put out provides permanent, ongoing tax relief for all working Minnesotans.
Democrats say Republicans' tax relief would also include wealthy Minnesotans, something they say they will not go along with.
Scammers are targeting Minnesotans with calls about the state's Energy Assistance Program. The Department of Commerce says people have been asked to provide a bank account or credit card information. The Energy Assistance Program does not require such information. Fargo-Moorhead, partly cloudy overnight. We expect an overnight low of about 25 degrees. Tomorrow, partly sunny, 35. Also near 35 Friday, mostly sunny. Mid-40s for the weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, mostly sunny. Fargo-Moorhead, we are mostly sunny and back at 53. Paul Jerkins, News Radio, KFGO.
You know how you get a song with just a little snippet stuck in your head, then you can't remember the name of it or who sings it? That was me and this song all day this afternoon. As Eric's been playing any song you can find with the word time in it, this is the one. Thank you for finally finding it. Now, who's the artist? I cannot for the life of me remember.
Chambers Brothers.
I would have never have guessed that.
No. Yeah, Time Has Come Today by the Chambers Brothers.
Thank you. I can finally move on in my mind. Perhaps that's where the aggression was coming. I had to get the song out of my mind.
I feel like this song I have heard in dozens of movies, but I can't think of any specific scenes.
Oh.
It feels like a Remember the Titans type song.
Yeah, that feels right. Turn it up as we let you get caught up with CBS National News. We'll address all the other messages. I can assure you I'm not going to get to all the texts. There's too many in here, but I'll try to get my best way through as many that make a separate point from other ones. We'll try to have a little bit of fun as well. As we get you to the 5 o'clock punch-out tonight is Wednesday, so we got Hennessy on hockey, Timberwolves versus Lakers. T-Wolves have been playing great. They've been energetic. You can catch that right here at 6:30 on KFGO. Let's see what I've accomplished today. I made some of you angry at me because of my stance on daylight savings. Made some of you angry because of my whole thoughts on the situation unfolding. Let's see if I could go 3 for 3. Doors are overrated. I really think so. They've got like 3 songs that I'm like, okay. But other than that, I could do away with ever hearing them. I mean, is that an unpopular statement at all? Because, I mean, you're kind of furrowing your brows back there. I've never got into the Doors.
I think it's a divisive band because I don't think there's a lot of, I don't mind the Doors.
Yeah, like
I think it's either I love them or I hate them.
Yeah. I never saw what people are of the, boy, this is top notch. Give me this on repeat. I'm just nowhere near that. Okay, so I'm not alone in that sentiment. So maybe I didn't anger all of you out there. This message I do want to address because you know what is this will maybe bring some of you back to not being so angry at me today. Tyler, what president addressed NATO lambasting them, their reliance, on Russian oil and gas? I forgot. He didn't forget, or she, whoever texted him. I'm sick of these plausibly deniable, corrupt public servants blaming each other, positioning for re-election, ever willing to send young men and women into foreign conflict. Clowns, every one of them. You didn't forget, and I know what you're getting at here. So let me thread this needle. Because I do stand by the fact that what you got underneath Donald Trump when it came to NATO and what Putin wanted, he was inching that way. Now, some of what he was asking of other members of NATO, he was right. He was right as far as you got to pay more of, if you're going to be a part of it, you got to pony up more than what you are. Getting off the reliance of Russian oil and gas, quite frankly, I think it's proven right there. It took this war for them to realize that now you've got Germany stepping up. You got, Poland? There's others within that NATO alliance because of Putin's aggression that are doing some of that. But the whole threatening that the U.S. is going to pull out, that would have been the big wet kiss for Putin. So there, did I thread the needle in your mind? I get what you're getting at. I appreciate the text. Tyler, the average small high school had as much musical talent as the Doors. Whoa! That's taking it from where I was to 11. Some people love the Doors. I do not, and I see that I'm not alone in that. Speaking of bands, is Slipknot tonight? Because I just got a message saying, hey, you should stop by, join us before we go to Slipknot. I am not a Slipknot guy either. Shocked. That's something I think a lot of us probably agree on. Is that tonight at the Fargo-Dome? How did that fall off my radar of all things?
Yeah, you said that, and I was scrambling also to think.
And you didn't find the answer. Okay, I'm pulling you in and throwing you under the bus. That's one thing when you've got these acts coming to the Fargo-Dome, which I've enjoyed. I've said, why are we not getting more rock acts? This is a little bit more metal, a little bit more thrashy, a little bit more aggressive than what I do find myself turning the dial to listen to. I'll be curious the turnout here because I remember, we went to Manson and Rob Zombie, and it was half full. Now, if you have something like a group like Slipknot, I would expect it would be about the same. If you're going there, let me know. 237-594. You can also text in, as so many of you have chosen to do today at 35270. Here's where I will end this conversation when it comes to everything you're watching unfold. That does matter. I know that it probably seems like there are bigger issues here. I think that this is, on a global scale, certainly the most important thing that needs to be discussed. And you got to be questioning what you're willing to do to help out. And what you're willing to do to prevent it from escalating further. It just, because it seems like it could be a world way, doesn't mean you just turn the other way while you're watching, pregnant mothers get killed in action for simply being in a maternity ward because you've got an aggressive individual backed into a corner that wants to find a way out here. So, yeah, we'll continue to follow along, and when it comes down to how it impacts it, we will talk about it and what's going on over there. That's all for today, though. I tell you what, we'll get you some weather updates. Too Tall Tom Schmansky's on vacation this week, so Eric Johnson will provide that for you. We'll have a little bit of fun this final segment. Also, we'll see what's coming up on the drive. Derek Hansen is going to steer you right into Hennessy on Hockey. I'm Tyler Axis. You got it locked into KFGO Fargo.